Yo, what it do?
Bruh. Bruh. Like that
Yeah.
last session, I'm still on fire.
They apparently they still going. So,
Let them
so
go
yeah,
because
yeah.
they
We
need
we we probably here by ourselves.
it. We might be. And if we are, I'm okay with that.
That's fine. We
Because
don't need to be seen.
no, we don't need to be seen because that's what the people pay for.
Right. That's what they ain't paid to yet.
Man, to see I call him I've only met Jamise in person, but
Mm-hmm.
that panel, you guys, that is what I've been waiting for. Like, I've been,
All
this
day.
is what, to see my peers. I mean, I love authors. I love you guys. Thank you. We couldn't do this without you.
Y'all were fire.
Right, but Black Readers Con is about the readers and the community and how we influence books and reading amongst our peers. And this group,
Mm-hmm.
that panel was fire. So my takeaways were community, engagement, family, and data. How
Yeah.
about you? What was yours?
Same. I mean,
Same.
I'm sure I could think of some other stuff. I
Yeah.
didn't take any notes, but mentally, that's what I remember those same things.
It was just so many things to take in,
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am so glad that we were able to get such a powerful group of people to join this panel. So um, I don't know. I think it looks like they have just finished.
Yes. So
So
we
we
might get
may
some
have to,
people.
huh? So we might, right? We
We
might
might
get,
get some people.
we'll just kind of chill over here for a little bit, hoping some people will join
Yeah.
us. Because after that, man,
Look, you know, I'm gonna play a quick commercial while we, sit
that
here. Is
sounds
that
good.
good?
That sounds good.
Let's see what I want to play. Uh, do something short. Let's play.
Yes, Audra, that was amazing.
I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
play
have a
this.
commercial because you guys, y'all, yeah, yeah. All right, commercial break.
Hello, Black Readers Conference attendees. My name is Karen Hines, and I am the author of The Pill. It is a speculative novel, and it is a work of fiction about a doctor that invents a pill that restores youth. And it brings her complications as well as complications for her patients. The novel is loaded with action and romance, and it will make you think about inventions to come. It is available on Amazon, and it's also available on my website, www.thepilltrilogy.com. Thank you.
I think I'm gonna need to take a pill after that last session.
I had to go get another cup of coffee because I was like, "Whoo, baby!" People
Yeah,
are saying,
I need to take a chill pill after that last session.
"Yes, that was fire." Right, I'm fired up too, Shantae, because they brought the heat. Like
Yes.
Raymond and I were like, "We're gonna get some prizes away later. We need to chat about
Yeah,
this."
we got to cool down.
Man. And you know what? Like, and you guys are probably still over in the session. We've been waiting on this. We have been wait. This is like one of the panels that we were just really looking for. I'll speak for myself, just to see my peers and to just to hear them interact. Family. The conversation was wonderful. I see people saying it was too short. Sorry, guys, but just grateful that they were accepting and willing to come over and talk about this. So, how about you, Raymond? What did you take from this?
Likewise, just all five of them, very busy schedules. They everywhere in terms of the YouTubes, the IGs,
Yeah.
the book tours, the book talks and whatnot. Very thankful for all five of them for giving up their time and spreading their wisdom and engagement of what we all love, these books.
Yeah.
So very much
Right.
thank you,
Yes. Yes.
Tracy, Jamise, Akili Reggie, and Crystal D. Melanated Reader.
Yeah, that was my favorite too so far. Love it. So what's up next, sir?
So we need to play this video. We have one of our sponsors, the Harlequin. It has a video previewing some of their upcoming new releases. So we're going to play that.
Oh, you got an announcement though. Remember about the booth?
Yes. So in relation to Harlequin, thank you, classy black, classy green.
Vanna Black.
Vanna Black. Yeah. So Harlequin was one of our sponsors, has a booth in the expo section. And their booth has a form that you can fill out to potentially win books. So after you watch this video, or now, whenever, but no, after you watch this video, go to the booth, check it out, and fill out a form. So and it'll be Harlequin Trade Publishing. So I'm going to play this video now, and then we will come back. All right.
Hello, my name is Pamela Osti, and I'm a marketing manager at HTP Books. HTP Books stands for Harlequin Trade Publishing. You're probably familiar with our romance novels under the Harlequin Romance brand, but we are also the home of literary fiction, memoirs, thrillers, nonfiction, and also young adult and middle grade fiction under the Inkyard Press imprint. Inkyard Press publishes smart, engaging, middle grade, and YA fiction across a variety of genres, from realistic contemporary to epic fantasy. They are passionate about publishing diverse voices and giving their readers a chance to see themselves and each other in their books. On that note, I'm so thrilled to be invited here to introduce 4 Inkyard titles for teens. But before I do that, I wanted to start by reminding you to check out authors Alicia Dow and Layla Sabrine, who are appearing at Black Readers Conference. Alicia is the author of the YA novel The Sound of Stars and the forthcoming novel The Kindred. If you love The Sun is Also a Star, you'll love The Kindred. It's a blend of rip-roaring action and electrifying romance rolled into a royal romantic science fiction fantasy. Layla Sabrine is the author of You Truly Assumed, a compelling and thought-provoking debut novel that follows 3 Black Muslim girls who create a space where they can shatter assumptions and share truths. You can check out Alicia and Layla as they appear on the Superpowers, Revolutions, and Kick-Ass Heroes panel on October 30th at 10:55 a.m. And now on to the title introductions. So I'd like to introduce you to 4 recently released and upcoming Inkyard titles for your TBR list. First up, Waking Fire by Jean Louise is an incendiary YA fantasy debut which follows a girl who will stop at nothing to save her village after it's discovered by a dangerous warlord and his army of undead monsters. Set in a secret village hidden beyond the desert, this story will immerse readers into its unique world with North African, West African, and Middle Eastern influences, as well as a rich dragon folklore. With rich world building, a high-stakes plot, gruesome action, deep emotional layers, and a formidable heroine, this YA fantasy debut is perfect for fans of A Song of Wraiths and Ruin and We Hunt the Flame. The story ends with some pretty big questions left unanswered, and readers will be impatiently waiting for the sequel to publish in winter 2024. Waking Fire went on sale last month and is available wherever books are sold. Next up, The Wrong Kind of Weird by James Ramos is a high-energy YA contemporary love story following multicultural geek and nerd club member Cameron Carson and his secret relationship with school queen bee Carla Ortega. Cameron, member of the Multicultural Geeks and Nerds United, or GANU Club, has been secretly hooking up with student council president, cheerleader, theater enthusiast, and all-around queen bee Carla Ortega since the summer. The one problem, what was meant to be a summer fling between coffee shop co-workers, has now evolved into a clandestine school year entanglement where Carla isn't intending on blending their friend groups anytime soon, or at all. Enter Mackenzie Briggs, who isn't afraid to be herself or wear her heart on her sleeve. When Cameron finds himself unexpectedly bonding with Mackenzie and repeatedly snubbed in public by Carla, he starts to wonder who he can truly consider a friend and who might have the potential to become more. Sweet, snarky, and delightfully dorky, The Wrong Kind of Weird is the right kind of read for anyone looking for a huggable, nerdy rom-com packed full of heart and anime. The Wrong Kind of Weird is out in January, but is available for pre-order now. Next up, One of the Good Ones by sisters Maika and Maritza Mulit is a shockingly powerful exploration of the lasting impact of prejudice and the indomitable spirit of sisterhood that will have readers questioning what it truly means to be an ally. From the authors of Dear Haiti, Love Elaine. When social activist and history buff Kezzy Smith is killed under mysterious circumstances after attending a social justice rally, her devastated sister Happy and their family are left reeling in the aftermath. As Kezzy becomes another immortalized victim in the fight against police brutality, Happy begins to question the idealized way her sister is remembered. Perfect, angelic, one of the good ones. Even as the phrase rings wrong in her mind, why are only certain people deemed worthy to be missed? Happy and her sister Jenny embark on a journey to honor Kezzy in their own way, using an heirloom copy of the Negro Motorist Green Book as their guide. But there's a twist to Kezzy's story that no one could have ever expected, one that will change everything all over again. Sisters Maika and Maritza Mulit launched their career with Dear Haiti, Love Elaine, which was a huge bestseller and award winner, and they continue to explore powerful themes that impact communities of color in a universal and accessible style. One of the Good Ones is available in paperback and hardcover and is out now. And finally, in this raw and powerful debut novel for fans of Angie Thomas and Nick Stone, Neil by Candace Buford looks at the repercussions when a high school football star takes a knee for justice. It looks at hatred and social activism as they go head-to-head in a small Louisiana town. For guys like Russell Boudreau, football is the only way out of their small town. As the team's varsity tight end, Russ has a singular goal: to get a scholarship and play on the national stage. But when his best friend is arrested and kicked off the team, Russ faces an impossible choice: speak up or live in fear. Desperate for change, Russ kneels during the national anthem. In one instant, he falls from local stardom and becomes a target for hatred. But though he may be down, he's not alone. With the help of his best friend and an unlikely ally, Russ will fight for his dreams and for justice. Neil is a love letter to Colin Kaepernick and a no-holds-barred depiction of injustices faced by marginalized teens, and brings a needed and in-demand point of view to YA shelves. Neil is available in paperback and hardcover and in your favorite bookstore or retailer now. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening. You can find our books wherever books are sold or via harpercollins.com. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy Black Readers Conference.
Listen, hopefully your TBR has now grown with some great titles. It's probably exploded, if anything. But listen, we're ready to invite our keynote speaker and our moderator for today onto the main stage. If you're not familiar with Kwame Mbalia's work, you will get familiar today. So instead of laboring on about all the amazing books that he has, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing guest today, Christina Taylor, and of course, our keynote speaker, Kwame Mbalia. I'm going to hand it over to you. If you need me, I'm here, but everybody get ready.
Thank you. Well, welcome to today's keynote session. I can't get my son to read. I am Christina Taylor, the session moderator, and I'm thrilled to be guiding us through this discussion with husband, father, writer, and New York Times bestselling author, Kwame Mbalia. So let's get started. Let's begin with you formally introducing yourself for those who may not be as well versed in you and your work, and briefly kind of explaining your body of work.
Thank you. Yes. First of all, thank you so much for dialoguing with me today. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Kwame Mbalia. I am the author of the Tristan Strong trilogy. I am the co-author of The Last Gate of the Emperor duology. And I am the editor and one of the contributors of the #1 New York Times bestselling anthology, Black Boy Joy. I write. I find myself in the middle grade arena now. I love writing for middle grade young readers and readers of all ages, really, because I feel like we all gravitate towards the middle grade reading collection right now for some reason. But I write stories that are Black, uplifting, Black focused, Black centered, but not Black exclusive. And what I mean by that is that I always center the readers who look like me, who look like my daughters, who look like my wife, who look like my son. But that doesn't mean that everyone isn't invited to the cookout. Everyone isn't invited to the table. Pull up a chair, grab a plate. We're going to feed you. Right? You don't live here, but we're going to feed you and make you feel as if you are at home. And that's really the type of stories that I write.
Thank you. I understand that reading has always been one of your favorite hobbies, but I'm sure that while visiting schools and libraries, you've encountered kids who've said they don't like reading, or possibly they didn't like reading before encountering your books. According to them, what's made the difference?
I mean, I think everyone is different, and you can whether you are a reader or not a reader, your tastes differ. Someone who might prefer sci-fi, might not like the book that someone who prefers fantasy, reads or enjoys to read. And there's a common phrase, a common idiom that I like to use that has been used before, which says that it's not that you don't like reading, you just haven't found the story that you liked yet. You know what I mean? And I think that's the attitude that everyone should adopt. Not that there are, you have the term the reluctant reader, and that they're reluctant because they haven't found their favorite story, right? And so I get this question a lot from librarians, from teachers, from parents, how can I get my reluctant reader to read? And my answering, the taboo answer of answering a question with a question, I ask them, well, have you asked them what do they like? What are their interests? What do they enjoy? And I found just for myself, talking with other, young readers, you learn a lot just by listening, by not talking, by not trying to hand them something, but by listening to what they enjoy and what they like, whether it's, the common answer is video games or anime or a manga. That's cool. That is great. There is nothing wrong with that. And, a lot of times some people will stop with that answer right there and either that's a roadblock or they'll try to make the connections there. But I encourage you to dive deeper. What are the video games that you like? What types, right? Well, I love this video game where it's this this girl who is trying to rescue someone, and it's a post-apocalyptic landscape. And then you start to hear a little bit more of the story involved, right? Or, I like this game. It's a battle royale, so it's every person for themselves. There's 60 of them, and they're competing to this. And now you start to get a little bit more of the themes of what they're interested in, the game mechanics that make it fun for them. And so then it's like it's incumbent upon us to extract those interests and map them onto something that they might enjoy, right? Whether it's a short, 100-page I Survived thriller from Scholastic, whether it's a 500-page contemporary fantasy, it is incumbent upon us who have that expertise, or that quote unquote expertise, and the books that are out there, to then start pulling and plucking. But we won't be able to make those matches if we don't become interested in what our children, what our young readers are interested in. It's so easy to stand up for myself, just using myself for an example. It's so easy for me to get up on my, my high horse and start throwing books down at people like, you should read that, I like it. You should read that, I like it. But what if I just get off of that horse, get down on their level, and I sit and I talk with them about what they're interested in? All of a sudden, things start looking a little different from this level, and we can start making matches. And I think that's the most important thing, because once a reader has latched onto that story that is theirs, that resonates with them, all of a sudden the act of reading becomes transcendent. We've opened a doorway that one story props open and keeps them going and entering through to find another story that's just like that.
My librarian and former educator heart thanks you for that takeaway right there. If we ended the conversation here, I could go home full, and I'm sure the audience would as well. All right. Well, along those lines, just kind of taking it a bit further, as an author, what techniques do you employ? Because you just talked about reaching the reader one-on-one where they are. Unfortunately, when you're writing, that's not a process, or maybe it is, where you get the opportunity to know what's going to reach them. So what techniques do you employ in order to specifically engage young male readers? And what do you recommend that parents, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What do you recommend that parents look for when they're seeking out reading that resonates with their sons?
So for me, techniques that I use are, you can't, first of all, you can't write with everyone in mind. Again, if you, it comes back to that quote, jack of all trades, but master of none. Like you can't try to hold everyone's attention. So what you have to do to start with is, I ask myself, am I holding my attention? Because there are, on my computer, bunch of folders with a bunch of partial chapters where I was like, you know what, this isn't quite, the spark fizzled out of this story idea that I had. It didn't transform. I didn't add the kindling. It's not turning into a blazing fire that's roaring within me to devour these pages. So for me, I have to figure out, all right, what is that spark? What is the kindling? And what are those longer burning pieces of wood that are going to sustain the fire, right? Because I'm a writer, I'm going to use all of these analogies. I apologize for everything that I use throughout the event. But I think that's the easiest way to think of it, right? And so for me, I have to add those sparks in at the very beginning so that they can catch. So they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, all right. Okay. In the first couple of pages, whether it's an adult or a young reader that's reading, we need to have that initial spark within the first couple of pages that encourages us to keep going. Something told us to pick up the book, whether it was someone else, maybe it was the title, maybe it was the book cover, but something told us to pick the book up, and now we need that spark, right? And so for me, it depending on what type of book I'm writing. If it's a science fiction book, I want to make sure to put, maybe a cool gadget, some cool tech, maybe a robot, an android. In the case of Last Kid of the Emperor, it's a bionic lioness, right in the first couple pages. That's our cute, fun, heavy 1-ton metal sidekick. Maybe it's, at the time we were writing this, we weren't all doing virtual school. But maybe it's, having people show up to school in holograms, or, with tiny little beetle avatars, just something kind of cool to be like, all right, yeah, there's going to be more of this throughout the story. Those are the sparks, right? In Tristan Strong, it's, you know, there's a glowing green journal. Journals don't glow, you know, something's happening. But in terms of Tristan's life, this isn't the most priority thing that he has to face right now, right? He has lost his best friend. He's being shipped off, in his mind, down south because in embarrassment, he lost his first boxing match. So we have sparks within the story. And then we have to maintain this promise to the reader by adding kindling, ramping things up. Maybe a tiny sticky creature breaks in and they have a little tussle. Maybe there's a video game that he has to unfortunately team up with his rival with in order to compete to win this huge money prize that will help him stay in school, right? We have to continue to ramp up the tension, ramp up the excitement. Those are the techniques that I use as a writer. As a reader, trying to pick these out for my children or for the young readers in my life, you gotta do a little work. All right, like the onus is if you are trying to make these matches between story and young reader, you're gonna have to do a little bit of work. You're gonna have to do a little bit of reading. We already asked you, to ask your young readers what are their interests. Well, now you got to start reading through the book a little bit to figure out, are these interests aligning, right? Does this spark that I read, does that match something that he's interested in? He said he likes video games. He said he likes battle royales. This book mentioned that in the first couple pages. There's a big tournament, big money prize. Seems pretty cool. Right now we're aligning, but you don't know that unless you do a little bit of the work and you start reading yourself, right? You start reading and browsing. Something that my mother, who was the biggest encourager for reading for me in my life, something that she would do is she would, read like the chapter or two. She was a reader herself. She'd read and then she'd drop it. She's like, Kwame, I was, up until I was a year ago. I'm looking for the book right now, but she will still, Kwame, have you read this? I'ma send you this book because I think you might like it. And 9 times out of 10, I might like it. Now, she doesn't, I can't give her 100% credit. She's not right all the time. But more often than not, because she knows me, she knows my interests, and she's been buying books for me for however many decades I've been her son now, she hits more than she misses. And so, again, do the work. If you want to encourage reading, you yourself have to model that. Again, make sure that we try to match those interests between what they're interested in and the sparks within the book that the writer employed.
Ooh, okay, this one's a little bit off script, but you inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about that spark. You talked about that hook in the very beginning that snags the reader in. Could you read for us, whether it's your own or something else, if you have a book that just really, that you think really does have that spark that just snags it, that does it for you? I would love to hear you read.
I promise I give so many of my books away. The one that I'm thinking of is the third in the trilogy. If you give me 1 second.
No worries, take your time.
So the third book in the Tristan Strong trilogy, I think, because as you move away from the first book, it gets harder and harder to bring new readers in. And so I try to employ more and more of those sparks in the beginning, right? And so I find that having a first sentence that really is interesting, intriguing, and also slightly perplexing, that maybe asks a question without asking a question, is helpful. So like the first line in Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky is, "There's a rhythm in my fists." and which is slightly confusing, and unless you're a boxer, and then it becomes a little bit more. It makes a little bit more sense, right? You want that good boxers want that good rhythm when they're on a speed bag, when they're doing combos. But for the average reader, doesn't make it asks the question: How can my fists have rhythm? In the second book, Tristan Strong Destroys the World. The very I forgot. I had to remind myself. The very first line in Tristan Strong Destroys the World is nobody likes getting punched in the face. Which, is I think that's pretty accurate. And the following paragraph goes, call it a hunch or an educated guess. Either way, I can confirm from firsthand experience that getting punched in the face is way down on the list of enjoyable activities. It's somewhere between eating a halfway scraped off piece of burnt toast and giving yourself a wedgie. Nope, don't like it, especially when it's accompanied by my grandfather's trash talk. So that's something where, I try to open with a strong first sentence to get people intrigued and agreeing, and then expand upon it. And then nobody likes when, the older generations talk trash to the younger. Nobody likes. As a younger generation who's heard it, and as an older generation who delivers it, nobody likes it, right? It's like an inheritance to pass down. But, we don't like hearing our older folks talk trash to us. And so it's building that empathy with the reader to encourage them to keep going. And then finally, and Tristan Strong Keeps Punching, the third book in the trilogy, I open with, it should be physically impossible for the human body to burst into flame. Aren't there rules against that? I'm pretty sure my life sciences class covered it last year. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm a firm believer that people aren't meant to be matches. So that's why I stared in utter horror at the small silver flame popping out of my knuckles. And so, again, it's that spark. It's that that strong opening that latches on, that readers can latch on to, that catches their attention and asks them a question. And the only way they can answer that question is if they can continue to read.
Thank you for sharing those sparks with us. I realize I threw a slight wrench in the works and kind of brought that out of nowhere, but I appreciate that. So you mentioned that as parents, as adults in young readers' lives, we have to read some of what they're reading in order to help make those matches, in order to help find that spark that's going to connect with them. From a father's perspective, as a father, have you encountered, or what special challenges have you identified when connecting with young readers, with young male readers? And how do you recommend additional recommendations that parents address them?
Oh, this is a fun question, because again, it asks us to do the work. Just speaking from personal experience and calling back to my previous statement that not every book is for everyone, you have to remember that when you are reading a book that you are trying to, or when you're selecting a book that you're trying to give to a young reader, it's not about you. It's not about whether I like this story. I have to take my personal biases out of it. It's not about if I like the story. It's if the young reader will like the story, and so, I might, a big issue that I see with older readers is that they will be like, I don't like this. I don't like this character. I don't understand why they're doing that. And then you have to remember, well, the character wasn't written for you, for your age. You've learned, you've made mistakes, and you've learned from them. And so now you think you know what the right thing to do is. Well, for our young readers, we still, they still haven't made those mistakes yet. So they may empathize and more understand the reasoning for why this character is doing that. I don't know if you remember middle school. I remember middle school. And I remember there was a lot of confusing things happening internally, externally, right? I was making mistakes left and right. I would wake up a mistake. I would go to sleep surrounded by mistakes. And so it is, we have to remember that we are not reading for us. We are not empathizing with the character. It's for our young readers, a completely different individual, decades younger than us. So that's the first thing. And so for me, so like when I'm trying to figure out what books my daughters might like, assuming I've already asked them what their interests are and everything. For me, it then becomes trying to it's an ongoing battle to eliminate those biases and try to put myself into the shoes of the young reader. It's hard, and again, you're not going to win 100% of the time. You're not going to get everything right, and that's fine. I would think that we would rather be wrong and accumulate a library, bookshelves of books that they're maybe not ready, or maybe they're not interested in right now, rather than have no bookshelves at all. Just from personal experience, it took me 3 tries to read the 5th season, which is N.K. Jemisin's adult Hugo award-winning debut book, and her trilogy that each book won the Hugo Award, which is the Oscars for science fiction and fantasy books, right? It took me 3 tries to read it because I just couldn't vibe with it. I didn't vibe with the style. I didn't vibe with the character. I didn't vibe with the world. But something about that 3rd attempt hooked me, and it became one of my favorite books of all time. So if I'm still doing that as an adult, then we have to understand and hold grace within our hearts for our young readers who might not read something that we've offered them right then, but maybe they come back to it in a month, in a year. I almost did a backflip. I didn't attempt it because my knees and my back aren't what they used to be. But I almost hit a backflip when my oldest daughter, who had gone away from reading, came back and said, I started reading, I think she said, I started reading The Color Purple, and, I'm really, getting in. You know how happy I was when she said, I started reading this. I was like, yes. And it's not for a lack of trying. It's just that we have to make space and remember that it takes time, and our reluctant readers have to make their way to their own stories. We can't shove it into their face. We attempt, we offer, but we don't force, because forcing is how you make reading a chore. And we don't want reading to be a chore. We want reading to be an escape. We want reading to be a choice. We want reading to be an option of entertainment, and an option of growth, an option that our young readers select on their own. And I think that's something that we have to continually think about as the adults in this situation, that we have to be responsible. We are here to encourage. We are not here to force.
Thank you again. Yet once again, in this moment, I want to be in a library where I'm scheduling this programming for a class of students to watch. But that being said, as a librarian, I've found that engaging those readers that you talked about that haven't found the book yet, that connects with them, those so-called resistant or reluctant readers, it can often begin with less conventional forms of storytelling. So my next few questions are rooted in that practice. And the first one is the idea that graphic novels are often recommended. Graphic novels and comics are often recommended as a way to broaden the reach of reading. What areas were your observations about the impact of the graphic adaptation of Tristan Strong, Punches a Hole in the Sky?
Right off the bat, it's twofold. I'm sure there are more, but I could think of 2, right off the bat. One is that it's less intimidating. Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky was almost 500 pages, over 100,000 words, whereas the graphic novel is 125 pages and fewer words, right? And so for the readers who might be intimidated, it's a great entryway. And also it's I love it because it requires almost and engages a different part of the brain, right? Because you have to, in the prose, you're just interpreting the words and you're forming your own images, right? Well, now the images are supplied, and now you're interpreting what part of the story these images have translated from the prose. So it engages a different part of the brain, right? And it's also a it can stand on its own, or it can lead right back to the trilogy, right back to the original novel. It's a great entryway because it alleviates a lot of that pressure. Like, there are some readers who seek out the longer books. I was one of them. My daughter, I've seen her backpack when she brings home from the library and the media center. She was one of them. But that's not every reader. And so being able to eliminate a lot of that stress that comes from, oh my goodness, I have to finish this, or on the completely being able to say that I've finished reading this book, right? There is something in the self-gratification that comes from that as well. I love adaptations in general, just because they are a different way that a story can be told. And at the end of the day, I am a storyteller. And that's what's important to me, is that the story is being told. But adaptations of, everyone thinks about, oh, is it going to become a movie? I would love for it to become a movie, less so because of, oh, there's money involved, and more so because it's a new way that the story is being told and will reach a different audience. Someone who might have skipped over the book will watch the movie and think, I've seen that in the library. Let me go pick that back up. It's a new way to tell the story. Something that I always recommend, another recommendation for the reluctant readers is, a series of either what we call first chapter Fridays, where the teacher reads the first chapter of a book to see if it engages, because sometimes people just don't know about it. Sometimes people do not know that the book exists. I'm also a big fan of audiobooks. Audiobooks, again, engage a different part of the brain. And it's something where students, young readers, people in general can have their hands busy. They're keeping idle hands busy while the mind and the ears are engaged. That works for some. It works for other people. It doesn't work for all people. But I love recommending audiobooks, especially because a shameless plug, Amir Abdullah is the narrator for the Tristan Strong trilogy. He also narrated some of the stories for Black Boy Joy, and he does a fantastic job. And again, it's like you're listening, like a movie is unfolding in your brain. I love recommending Star Wars audiobooks, simply because a lot of the Star Wars audiobooks will either have like full cast recordings, or they'll have all of like the sound effects. So you're hearing the TIE fighters and the lightsabers and everything unfolding in your brain, unfolding in your ears as you're listening to the story. And it's entertaining. It's just another way to process the story. So I love adaptations. There's no one particular one that I shove at people. I just say, whichever way of engaging with the story works for you, that's the version of the story I want you to engage with.
Thank you. Along those same lines, how does your passion for gaming intersect with your love of reading and writing?
I love it.
Or does it?
I love it, just because I am the generation of, so not Atari or ColecoVision or anything like that. I'm the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo. I was just on the edge of Nintendo, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, so that's the generation where, so video games were well into, the mainstream as I was growing up, right? And it was to me, it's another mechanism of, again, delivering a story. When I'm doing school visits, sometimes I'll like to say year by year, here's what my favorite story of the year was. So like in 2019 or 2020, it might have been Legendborn, by Tracy Deonn. In 2019, it might have been Tristan Strong, right? In 2018, I love surprising, my audiences with my favorite story was a video game. Because it was immersive, because I learned so much, and because of the relationship dynamics that it provided within it. I think with the technology that we have, like video games as a mechanism of delivering a story, it's severely underrated. Severely underrated. I've played video games that have made me cry, that have made me laugh, that have made me frustrated, because the story that the game is telling was delivered in a way that was empathizing, that was energetic, that was just completely incredible. And so, there's a lot of things that I use we generically, that we have to kind of get over in terms of our biases and prejudices. One of those we talked about, which was the idea of graphic novels not being real books or real reading. The other, I think, is video games as mechanism. A long times comics and video games and graphic novels are considered, nerdy. It's a weird hobby or pastime, really niche. That's not true. That is not true. We need to get over that, because some of the better stories are being told within these mediums right now. And I love it. I love bringing it up, at school visits, because, you can be a writer for video games. You can be what's called a narrative designer or a story lead. They're looking for them all the time. And so, it's just one more aspect to tie in stories and writing with our young readers, to give them an idea of what's possible for them.
Before we head into questions from the audience, we have a few minutes left. And I know you said you were making a shameless plug, but I'm going to invite you to make a full-on shameless plug before we open the floor to questions. Whether you want to talk about your next project, your favorite charitable organization, cause, whatever. The floor is yours.
See, the problem is that as a writer, our next project, we know what the next project is, but it hasn't been announced yet. So there are like 5 different things I'm working on right now, where when the news drops, you better believe I'm going to be hitting, maybe not backflips, but cartwheels in the street, so that to let you know how exciting this opportunity is. But something that I can say I'm working on is I turned in maybe a month ago. I turned in a draft for a new contemporary fantasy trilogy. So if you've liked Tristan, get ready, because a new hero has entered the story world, and will be taking us on an incredible magical adventure in this world and the next. And so I'm really, really, really excited about that. But the 2 most recent books for me that dropped this summer, again, we talked about the graphic novel, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky graphic novel, but also the last book in the duology, The Last Gate of the Emperor, The Royal Trials came out. This came out in July, and this is this is me and Prince Yoel McConan, my co-author, our ode and love to video games and sci-fi and Afrofuturism. I was really, really, really excited to work with him on this and to write this story. Just because sci-fi was one of my first loves. I remember doing homework at the kitchen table while my mother had Star Trek: The Next Generation on. With Captain Picard and Data and Geordi LaForge, who's one of my heroes. So sci-fi has always been at the forefront of the stories that I love to consume. So being able to write this duology, The Last Gate of the Emperor, in bookstores everywhere, was absolutely fantastic. And to be able to do it and to write it with royalty, with Prince Yoel, who is the great grandson of the last Ethiopian emperor, Haile Selassie, was really fun. It was a really, really, really cool experience. I learned a lot. Got to, for research, got to play a lot of video games and eat a lot of Ethiopian food. Again, for research, I had to do it, right? So it was really, really fun. It was a really, really fun experience. And I feel really fortunate that I get to do something where I get to have covers like these made. I have them blown up. I don't have them with me right now. They're in my trunk of my car because I take them on school visits. But to have posters like that made where I get to show these Black and brown faces, these Black and brown students in the schools, these books that they can then get excited about. So it's really, really fun for me.
I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but let's open the floor to the audience. If you have questions for Kwame, please drop them in the chat. And let's hear from you. Audra tells us that she loves Ethiopian food, and I have to agree. I was thinking to myself, I was like, how do I get this research gig?
Listen, the day the first book dropped, I drove, I think it was like 45 minutes to an Ethiopian restaurant. What was really fun, what was really cool, is I took two signed copies of the book with me and dropped them off at the restaurant so that they can give it to a young reader there. And which was really fun. Like the restaurant chef and owner seemed really, really, like he was thrilled. He was so thrilled. And then at the launch for this book, for the Royal Trials, an Ethiopian family came up to me and they were like, it was so exciting to see Amharic, the official Ethiopian language, in a book, in a middle grade book, to see kind of, our culture in a story like this was really, really, really cool. And then they invited me over to Ethiopian Easter, which I gotta check my calendar because I'm not exactly sure what that was. But when someone invites me over to eat with them, best believe I'm going to be engaged in that.
I think people are just kind of thinking on that Ethiopian food. I know I am.
What did I have? I think I had. I'm trying to remember what I had. I definitely had. I think they're called some sambusas, samosas or sambusas, which are the savory. They're like the Jamaican beef patty, except you can get them with veggie or whatever. Absolutely delicious. Matter of fact, I might order some after the panel.
Okay, well, there are questions in the Q&A tab. Unfortunately, as the moderator, I am not seeing the Q&A tab. So we are going to need a little help in that area. Oh, here's a question from, go ahead.
From, hi, can you tell us the inspiration for the Tristan Strong trilogy? I love the books, by the way, especially Gum Baby. Everyone loves. Can I tell you a secret? I was so afraid that Gum Baby stole the story in book one that I was not going to put her in the following books. I was so worried that she kind of took the shine away from Tristan and his character growth, that I was this close to not putting her in book two. And my editor was like, you better go back and make sure to include her. The Tristan Strong trilogy, it's twofold. One is that I've always wanted to tell a story that includes the characters that I grew up listening to as a kid. So my parents would put on the cassette tapes cassette tapes of like John Henry or Brer Rabbit, those stories. And so as a child, me and my siblings, we would listen to those before bed. And I always wanted to tell a story that included those. But also each novel in the trilogy tackles an emotional theme. In book 1, it's grief. In book 2, it's trauma. And in book 3, it's anger. And so I wanted a way for us as adults to be able to engage with our young readers about healthy and unhealthy ways to express those emotions and provide those examples. You know, is John Henry's way of dealing with grief better or worse than Tristan's? Is it better or worse than High John's? You know, like what is a healthy way to process grief? Same with trauma and same with anger. What are healthy expressions of anger versus unhealthy expressions of anger? I wanted us to be able to have that conversation with our young readers and for them to make those connections and ask those questions of themselves as well. You know, like why was High John's method of dealing with the iron monsters not a good idea? You know, because he and Tristan both wanted the story box to save, their world. But why was Tristan's idea better than High John's? You know, I wanted young readers to be able to ask that question so that they could recognize, though, when they are having those emotions themselves at this really nebulous time of their lives, when you're 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, when things are just completely out of, like, you're not in control of anything. I wanted them to be able to recognize when those emotions are prevalent and what may be a healthy way and what may be an unhealthy way of dealing with those emotions.
Thank you. Mika Rashid asks, how can teachers use your novels in their classroom?
You know what? I love this question because I flip it right back around and I say, how would you use, a Mark Twain novel in your classroom? Or how would you use, Shakespeare in the classroom? I mean, you might use it to teach a lesson on in social studies or in drama or anything like that. And I would say I want our books to be used in the exact same way. One of the bigger, not the only, but one of the bigger reasons for Black Boy Joy is because the short story as a form, it's such an excellent way to teach writing and composition and creative writing, right? But I feel like I've never using stories, or I've never seen stories by Black authors being used to teach creative writing or writing. I mean, I'm sure it might be different now, but when I was coming up, it was few and far between. And so I was like, I want, our middle grade students to be able to pull up Black Boy Joy and pull a story out of there, and we could talk about how the author did this. Yes. Are we centering joy? Yes, that is another big reason for that. But I also wanted the short stories to be used in the classroom. I wanted, we're talking about class, we are talking about point of view today. First person, second person, third person, what's common and uncommon. You know what's uncommon? The second person point of view. Maybe we should learn about that. Let's use an example. Let's use Jason Reynolds' short story from Black Boy Joy, where the entire story is about getting fly for the first day of school, and it's used from the second person point of view. Let's tackle that. Instead of, any of the other authors, I wanted to be able to pull someone with a brown face as an author to use as a teaching tool. And I think that's almost as important as the material that we're studying. It's who we're studying and who is it written by.
Very true. Sylvester Barzy asks, from what you've written so far, which is your favorite title, like the book you enjoyed creating the most?
So I get this question a lot from, audiences when I'm doing school visits. They'll ask, what's your favorite book? And you know what I tell them? I say, asking a writer what is his favorite book is like asking a parent or a teacher who their favorite kid or student is. You know what I mean? Like, we know, we're just not going to tell you. Like it's we know who it is. We're just not gonna say it for the sake of being equitable to everything. But for me, it's really hard to choose because they're completely different stories. You know, there's fantasy, there's sci-fi, and then there's a short story anthology. And so the answer I usually kind of fall back on is the very first book I wrote that got me an agent. Not the first book that I wrote, but the first one that got me my first agent that allowed me to break into publishing. That one's not published yet. That hasn't been published because I wrote it kind of at the same time as I was writing Tristan Strong, Punches a Hole in the Sky. And, you know, there's my book that got me an agent, and then there's this book that got interest from, you know, Disney and Rick Riordan. And so it's like, all right, we'll launch with Tristan. And so I had to put the first book, you know, aside. But it was called The Floating Library of Timbuktu, and it was a historical fantasy, a historical steampunk fantasy where the great Mali Empire built this floating library that was a repository of knowledge, but that was lost to the sands of the Sahara Desert until this one kid finds it and uses it to kind of empower the villages and where he lives. So I love that story. I loved it to death. Again, not only because of the content, but because it was the first one I wrote, and the one that garnered interest from editors, publishers, and from agents. I don't know if it'll ever be published, but it'll always have that special place of kind of being the book that helped me to break in.
I want to see that come to light. I'm biased, but I want to see that come to light. So from Latrice McNeil Smith, we have the question, have you thought about making any of your books into actual video games?
I would love it. I actually went to school for a little bit after, you know, when I was thinking about it, I was like, I want to do video game, you know, production, design, you know, so I went for coding and design, and it just takes a lot of time. I was going to say a lot of resources, but it's actually easier today to create a video game than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago in terms of the technology and the platforms that they have built that allow you to do that. Sort of like they have, you know, like so many different variations of a Microsoft Office for video games, basically, where you can, you know, you'll learn the language, but all of the tools that you need are there for sound and animation and such and everything. So I would love to. I just don't have the time. But I would you know what my dream would be is that somewhere there is a Black-owned video game studio that we would partner with to create something like this, whether it's the battle royale called The Hunt for Caleb's Obelisk from the Last Gate of the Emperor, or whether it's just a quest-based platformer for Tristan. Maybe you play as Gun Baby, you know, and you have to defeat the Iron Monsters. I would love to partner with a studio to do that because, again, it's just another way to deliver the story, which I think is really, really, really cool.
There's a lot of interest in having your books made into video games. I've seen multiple questions at this point. Another question we have is, what are 3 books on your current to-be-read list, whether they're YA or middle grade?
I have one right here. I just got sent. It doesn't come out until another 8 days or so. It is Bloodmarked. It is the sequel to Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, which was one of my favorite titles ever. One of the perks, kids out there, if you're listening, one of the perks of being a writer is that they'll send you books for free, sometimes before the books are even out. And so Bloodmark is a young adult title that comes out again in not this week, but I think next week. I'm trying to think of what else is on my. The other problem is what is out yet and what isn't out yet, and what have I read. I have really been big into memoirs recently. So, Hey Kiddo is a graphic novel memoir that I just finished. I don't have the book for it yet, just because it is a digital copy. And then see, you say young adult or middle grade. I'm trying to think. I've read so much recently, but I haven't. I can always plug a fellow Rick Riordan Presents author. The most recent one to come out is Rosie Brown's Serwa Boateng's Guide to Vampire Hunting, which is Rosie is a Ghanaian American author, and this is a book rooted in Ghanaian culture. So if you like Tristan, you would love Serwa Boateng's Guide to Vampire Hunting. So those are the young adult and middle grade books. But I'm also going to plug for the adults out there. I've been really reading memoirs. So one is Heavy by Kiesi Lehman. The second is Brother, I'm Dying by Edwidge Danticat. And then finally, Pleasant View by Celeste Muhammad. Haiti, Barbados? Trinidad and Tobago. So Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, Jackson, Mississippi. I love reading authors of the Black diaspora, so I try to spread those around. We can talk about book recommendations for days. All I do is read and write in video game.
So along those same lines, many young boys move into sports around middle grade. So what are some ways, and I'm thinking in terms of book recommendations, but the question comes from the audience. What are some ways that we can infuse reading while supporting their sports activity?
I was trying to look for one of my favorite books of all time is Slam by Walter Dean Myers. It is a book about a kid who's entering his junior year of high school, and he just left his inner city high school for a suburban high school. And so I like to call it like the Miles Morales of sports, right? Where he leaves the community that he knows, the friend that he knows, the basketball team that he was on, and now he has to join this basketball team, keep his grades up, and also deal with this idea of I've left my community, that I still want to be a part of. I love it. He plays his former team. He plays against his former best friend. So there's competition and rivalry and basketball. Like there was a period of time where sports books were all the books that I read. There was I can't remember the name of the book, but there was a book about twin brothers. One of them played on the football team, and then he got injured, and the other twin brother took his place and had to try to fool everyone so that they can maintain, I think it was like a scholarship or something like that. Like the books are out there. Again, it is incumbent upon us to go to your local independent bookstore, sit there, talk with the bookseller, talk with the reps. They are super knowledgeable. They are there for a reason. They're there because they love books and making book reps as well. Head to your local library and sit and talk with the librarians. Again, they are there because they love it and they have that passion as well. The books are there. Whether it's the graphic novel or the traditional novel of I have it right here, of Kwame Alexander's crossover Booked and Rebound. Like I have the set right here. He also has the graphic novels. And I want to say the crossover is getting turned into either a Disney Plus or a Netflix series. So they're there. We just have to find them and make those recommendations and get them interested into it. As far as incorporating it, something that we had to do as a team when I played high school basketball is we had study hall before practice. So if school let out at 3 and practice started at 4, study hall was from 3 to 4. And you were in there, either you're doing your homework or you grab something from the library. And so as a coach, you can be in there modeling that, not just sending them there by themselves. You and your coaches can be in there reading or forming a dialogue about what's the last thing you read at study hall. I know winning games is important, but coming from, if we are going to have something called a student athlete, then we need to have something called a teacher coach, not just someone who is just a coach, but someone who teaches and coaches at the same time. So we need to be modeling that.
And that is a whole sermon on its own. But there's one last question that I've seen. Someone came in late. Summer Chapman has asked for recommendations for a middle schooler who is a former fan of Captain Underpants and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So there's more call for your recommendations.
So if as using my parental and my book recommendation brain, I look at those two titles. They're graphic, they're funny. So we need to be looking for humorous books. Whether or not they have pictures, that can be up for debate. Whether it's a graphic novel or a prose book, that can be up for debate. But the central concept we need to be looking at is humor, right? So where are my funny books, right? I'm looking at books like ones that I've personally read, Jake the Fake, right? Which has, I love Jake the Fake because it's a prose book, but it also has like little doodles and drawings in the margins, right? Which are kind of enhance that. So there's Jake the Fake. And then, what I remember as a kid really enjoying were the Sideways stories at Wayside School. Like, it's super classic. It's like 30 years old now. But again, it's a bunch of interconnected short stories as in a book. So that, one, it's not as intimidating. I can read a chapter or two chapters, and those are individual stories, right? And it's funny. So again, we need to be looking for, all right, where are our humor books? Where are our comedy books? Where are our funny stories? And then that's then where I extrapolate backwards to find the books for this middle schooler.
We have, okay. Looking at one. Okay, I don't think that's a question. Sorry, we have about 2 minutes left. So again, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. If there are any parting words of wisdom you would like to leave with us.
Yeah, I think, just keeping in concert with the topic and with the subject of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to engage our reluctant readers, right? I have my own theories. I have my own, suspicions of why we're losing readers, because I know we have readers at that age in the middle grade. They're thriving there. Whether they're reading, Percy Jackson, or whether they're reading Tristan Strong, or whether they're reading, Ghost by Jason Reynolds, or Booked by Kwame Alexander. Like, the readers are there, but we're not retaining them. And I think that is something that is as much, the onus is as much on the publishing industry as it is bookstores or librarians, or schools, what we keep in stock, right? And so for me, it's, as an adult, if we want to carry on that love of reading, we got to feed it. A fire left unattended fizzles out, right? It fizzles out. We have to continue if we want that fire to burn long and strong and, provide warmth. We have to continue to feed it. And so that means buying books. That means, making time to accompany our children to the public library, right? Something my mother did every Friday. We would pick, she would pick us up from school, and we would go straight to the Martin Luther King Jr. Public Library in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And she would say, you can check out as many books as you want. And you may be a reluctant reader. You may be reluctant, but if anyone says that you can have as much of this random thing as you want, a kid is going to be like, I may not like reading, but I like having lots of stuff, right? And so I'm going to get lots of stuff. So make space and have grace to carve out time to feed our young reluctant readers, right? Take them to the library, take them to the bookstore. Something I tell my kids, like, listen, you got a budget on your lunch, you got a budget on your snacks, you have a budget on your, school clothing and school supplies. You have this limit, hard cap. Don't ask me to go to Claire's or Rainbow because you took your trip for the month, right? But if you tell me you want to go to the bookstore, there is no budget. We are walking out. You see a book, we're walking out with it, right? So make space. If you want to make our young readers, no longer reluctant, we have to encourage them and show enthusiasm, right? And we also have to model it. Studies show that when you read with your child, they're more likely to become and to enjoy reading. Read with them. Read in front of them. Carry a book with you. You do the reading. Are you a reluctant reader? If you want your kid to read, are you reading? Are you modeling that? There's so much that we have to. Let's stop putting the onus of responsibility on them and let's start putting it on us. And we're saying we're not tolerating excuses anymore. We're removing limits and excuses. If you want to become a reader, I am going to move heaven and earth to make sure that you find the book that resonates with you, because all it takes is one and they're hooked. I'm telling you.
Kwame, thank you so much. This has been a true pleasure on so many levels to have this discussion with you. And looking at the way the chat is blowing up, I am not the only one feeling this way. So thank you again. Thank you, Black Readers Con. And I believe that brings us to the end of our session.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Raymond.
Oh, wow, that was amazing.
I'm like, does it get any better?
Look, I didn't want it in.
I didn't either. I'm like, what else you got for us? What else?
Right.
You know
right.
how I'm like, you start pulling out. I mean, Kwame is like a wealth of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kwame. Yes, Kwame and Christina, thank you so much. I mean, he was pulling out adult recommendations. I love seeing him go pull books off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
It was so refreshing. And that last line, retention of readers. We have them. It's the retention and no budget for books. Your budget for Rainbow and Claire, I felt that all up in my shonda. He was like, there's no budget when it comes to the bookstore. We out of here.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, sir. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, you know what else we don't have a budget for? Giveaways.
These segues, bruh.
Look, let's give another giveaway while we're at it here.
Let's bring up the wheel. Come on,
Raymond.
say.
Hold on 1 second. We can bring up my wheel. The wheel. Hold on. Alrighty. And what we giving away, Classy?
Guess what? Kay the Reader, who is also on one of our panels coming up next, her book club, Rare Gems Literary Society, is giving away a prize pack cast by Isabel Wilkerson and son of Mr. Solomon, which I believe is
Eric Jerome Dickey.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Let's spin that wheel.
No whammies. Allison.
Turner, congratulations. You won the prize.
All right, Allison. So, because our next sessions are coming up, right?
Yes, starting now. So we have 2 sessions. Let's see. Bibliotherapy, literature, and mental health, and poetry for the soul.
Yes, in 5 minutes, I believe. Am I right?
No,
Or not?
really? Oh, we got longer. I thought we had a 5-minute break. My bad.
No, we had a 10-minute break. So yeah, so say that again.
On into 10, 5 minutes from now. I have echoes. Am I good? Okay, let's see. Okay. Bibliotherapy, moderated by Emily Rumble, Literati NYC. Panelists include Dr. Jaleesa Barnes and Dr. Keisha Ingram. And Poetry for the Soul, moderated by Katie Reeder. And the panelists include Norian Love, Adanya Mabin, and Dr. Martina McGowan. So I think we got time for another giveaway.
You want to try it real quick? Dr.
Sure.
Martina will not be with us today, but she may be, watching. But yes.
All right, let me go
Let's
back.
try it. Well, we have 5 books. I think we could do 5 really quick.
We can do 5. Let's do
it.
Hold on.
Let's go. Come on, Raymond.
Let me get this screen back.
Now, am I giving you an echo?
No, you good.
Okay. So I can put my headphones back on.
All right. So what we giving away now? 5 copies of Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual by Lovey Ajayi Jones.
Yes.
All right, let's start it up. Let's spin that wheel. Come on, big books, big books. Deon Jones, congratulations to you.
Yay.
Number 2. Nicole Walls, congratulations to you. We got 3 more winners about to get picked. Let's go. Let's spin that wheel again. Donna Evans. Congratulations.
He just mentioned in the comments. Oh, so close. Look at there. More.
2 more. Vivian Taylor.
Congratulations.
And the last one. Spin, spin, spin. Regina Renee Ward. Congratulations to you.
All right.
All right.
So we have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
Like everybody to head on over because this time we have consecutive sessions. So, just remember though, these are recorded. We'll let you know when those are available. But we have 2 great consecutive sessions about to start in 1 minute. Go get your drinks and get ready.
Okay. We will see y'all back here during the break at 3 o'clock.
All right, Raymond, say Jack.
All right.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye, y'all.